name, please raise your hand or stand so we may recognize you. Jackson, is it Keziah? Very good. Thank you for your help. We also have a page, Sean Lane. Thank you for being here. Madison Mullins. Madison, thank you. And I believe it's Kobiah Riley. Kobiah, thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you all's being here. We appreciate your help this morning. Members, our Sergeant at Arms today, we have Harry Hawkins, Malachi McCullough, and Thomas Terry. Thank you for your service. Couldn't do it without you. Members, we only have one bill on the calendar. It's House Bill 304, the Election Day Integrity Act. Every member should have received at approximately 8 o'clock or 8:15 last night a copy of the PCS and the summary. Hearing no objections, we'll have the PCS before us. Okay, the PCS is properly before us. And this morning we have Representative Davis. You're recognized to present your bill. Welcome to House elections.
Thank you, Chairman Mills and committee members. First, I'd like to thank my co-primary sponsors on this bill, Harry Warren, George Cleveland, and Chris Humphrey. I appreciate y'all joining me as primary sponsors. The PCS for House Bill 304, there are three major sections to this bill. Section number 1, return of executed mail-in absentee ballot, would require that, except for military and overseas voters, all completed applications and marked mail-in absentee ballots be returned to the County Board of Election office by 7:30 p.m. on the day of the election, regardless of any postmark. Any marked mail-in absentee ballots delivered in person must be delivered solely to the County Board of Elections office. Drop boxes for depositing marked mail-in absentee ballots would be prohibited. Section 1 would also make the following conforming changes. Provide that after the initial certified list is prepared, the list of all absentee ballots returned to the county boards for approval and counting by the County Board of Elections must include only ballots that have been received by the County Board of Elections no later than 7:30 p.m. on the day of the election. It would also provide that mail-in absentee ballots returned to the County Board of Elections between 5 o'clock p.m. and 7:30 p.m. on the day of the election are eligible to be challenged no earlier than noon on the day following the election and no later than 5 p.m. on the day following the election. Section 2 deals with publishing of dates for absentee ballot availability and request form. Section 2 would require county boards of elections and the state board to publish on its website and on any material sent to voters the date that absentee ballots are available for voting for that election and the date that completed absentee ballot request forms must be received by a county board of elections for that election. Section 3 deals with ballot reporting. Section 3 would require the county boards of elections to submit the following reports to the state board. During each day of early one-stop voting, the number of absentee ballots spoiled due to the voter voting in person at a voting site, the number of outstanding absentee ballots, including the total number of absentee ballots sent to date and the total number of absentee ballots received to date. On the day of the on the day after the election, the number of absentee ballots that have been counted, the number of outstanding absentee ballots, including the total number of absentee ballots sent to date, and the total number of absentee ballots received to date. Also, the number of voted provisional ballots. The state board must publish these reports on its website each day in a readable and usable format. Also, the effective date would be when it becomes law and applies to elections held on or after that date. Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation. I understand there are some amendments, sir.
Yes, sir. I believe there are some amendments. Are there any other comments from any of the other primary bill sponsors? If not, we'll move to the amendments. Okay. Members, I believe there are I have in my hand 4 amendments. We will begin with Amendment H304 ACH 13 V2. It amends Section 4, the effective date. Whose amendment is that? It doesn't have the name on it. Wanzi? Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. You're recognized to explain your amendment, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment would essentially, assuming that the 3-day grace period remains, it would essentially delay implementation of these changes until after the 2024 election. North Carolina has been operating a long time under the current system with a 3-day grace period that allows absentee mail-in ballots mailed in on or before election day to be counted. Voters have gotten used to this. I think back in 2009, this was originally approved and had wide bipartisan support at that time. And so in order to give voters enough time to learn the new laws so that they don't lose their freedom to vote, this amendment would delay implementation of this bill until after the next state election. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Further questions or comments regarding the amendment? Seeing no further questions or comments, yes. Go ahead. Recognize Representative Davis first, then Representative Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bonzi, I appreciate you bringing forth the amendment. However, sir, I'm going to respectfully ask the committee to vote no on the amendment. I believe that we have enough time before the next municipal elections, if this bill passes, to notify people. If you noticed in the bill, it says that notifications to go out on the websites from the Board of Elections to notify people of these changes. And I believe the sooner we can get this done, the better. So thank you, sir.
Representative Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Representative Davis made my point.
Very good. Further questions or comments regarding the amendment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
In the opinion of chair, the noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. Amendment fails. Okay, next. Amendment H304 ACH 14 V3. Representative John, is that your amendment? Okay.
My
My copy is not.
Mine is CSBK 15V8.
Okay, are you ready for that amendment, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Members, it's CSBK-15 version 8, Representative John.
Thank you.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
House 304 ACH-16.
Did I grab the wrong one?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Representative Ball.
yes.
And
Representative Ball,
I
you're
believe
recognized.
we are in possession of amendments that have different numbers than are being quoted.
Okay. All right. Representative John, your amendment, do you have the number, sir? What number do you have?
What I have is H304 ACH 14V3, which may have been the number you quoted originally. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
This is just simply saying that it's amended ACS.
Thank you.
Okay, so is this Representative John?
Well, this is the number that they're looking at to determine which one.
Sure.
And this, 14, is John's.
That's John's. Okay. Members, Representative John's amendment H304 ACH 14 V3. Okay, Representative John, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, let me apologize, Representative Davis. I meant to give you a copy of this initially, and I inadvertently gave it to Representative Cleveland. For whatever you might infer from that. Very simply, this amendment reinstates or strikes from the proposed bill the provisions eliminating the 3-day grace period. This grace period is found in any number of other states, Texas, Mississippi, Kansas. But the way the bill is currently drafted, it would require ignoring and presumably destroying absentee ballots received after 7:30 p.m. on election day. In 2020, that would have included disenfranchising 3,819 Democratic voters, 3,759 Republican voters, and strikingly 5,929 ballots from unaffiliated voters. This 3-day grace period was passed unanimously as Senate Bill 253 in 2009, and Representative Cleveland, I guess that means you voted for it in 2009. But to my knowledge, it's pretty much operated without issue since. So I guess my fundamental position is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But my primary concern with elimination of the 3-day grace period is that elimination has as its foundation an absolute confidence in the accuracy and reliability of the most inefficient, ineffective, and unreliable agency of the federal government, the U.S. Postal Service. So I submit that the amendment is well taken and recommended to you. Glad to respond to any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Representative John. Representative Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this amendment just guts the bill.
True.
And as far as the number of votes that the member says would have been negated had this been in effect, I think it's important to keep in mind those ballots came in under a law that allowed it to happen. So if we put this into effect, I think we can safely assume people will abide by this deadline as well as they did the previous one. So I don't think that's a valid argument, and I'd propose that we don't approve that amendment.
And Representative Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative John, thank you for bringing that amendment forward, but I will respectfully ask the committee to please vote against the amendment for the reasons set forth by Representative Warren. It guts the bill.
Representative Dahl, you're recognized.
Gutting the bill was the entire purpose. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this bill is. I don't know what the broken system is. I know that there is lots of news about voter fraud, but there's been very few proven cases. And so I would hope that people would understand and vote for this amendment.
Further questions or comments? Yes, Representative Willis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think where we're at right now in a nation and as a state, I mean, the people of North Carolina want to know on Election Day who has won and who has been elected. And being able to do that with 100% certainty in most cases is going to be paramount to where we're at. So I ask you to support this, support the bill as it is originally.
Representative Ball, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to Representative Willis's statement, actually there are a lot of provisional ballots that are still counted after that time, as well as those that this bill would allow, and those are people in service abroad. So we cannot call an election on election night, as I understand was the primary purposes of this bill. Thank you.
Representative Dahl, second time for the amendment.
I have a question, I think for staff, I don't know. I want to know, when does the, oh God, I hate being 58. When does the canvassing happen after a vote?
Would staff care to address the question?
Jessica Sammons, Legislative Analysis. Canvass happens 10 days after the election day.
Okay. Further questions or comments, Representative Dahl?
Well, I think my comment would be if it happens 10 days after, then that's the official recognition of who was elected. So therefore, the point of knowing who won on election night is moot. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Yes, Representative Willis, you're recognized for a second time on this amendment. Oh, nothing? Okay. Further questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Members, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. No. The opinion of the chairs, the noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. Motion fails. The amendment is not adopted. Okay, I believe that we have two more amendments. If you would, members, please raise your hand if you have an amendment to send forward. Representative Dahl, which is your amendment?
My amendment is H304 ACH-16 version 6.
Okay, ACH-16 V6. All right, Representative Dahl, you are recognized to explain your amendment.
So my amendment goes further to gut the bill, as you say, to ask for ballot boxes to be at the county voting boards so that people can drop off their absentee ballots. And I realize that I'm, pushing uphill, but I'm just asking for your vote that we can instate ballot boxes and have them secure ballot boxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dahl. Representative Davis, would you like to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Dahl, thank you for bringing that amendment forward, but I'm going to respectfully ask the committee to vote no on the amendment. This is part of making sure it's kind of like a chain of custody in a legal case. If you have somebody that is voting by absentee and it goes directly to the Board of Elections, there's no possibility of anything going on between that time, and you have a very clear chain of custody from the time the vote is done until the time the vote is received. So I'd ask you to please vote no on the amendment.
Representative Harrison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just had a question for I think it's for the bill sponsor or staff. Currently, if I recall correctly, and I didn't know if this was temporary to 1169 or if this is in our statute now, you can drop off an absentee ballot at early voting sites during operating hours of the early voting sites. Is that right?
Do you care to? Representative Davis is recognized, and if we need to. Staff, you're recognized.
Representative Harrison, yes, that's correct. Currently, you can take your absentee ballot to any one-stop voting site during the time that site is open for voting and hand it to an election official at that early voting one-stop site.
Just a
Follow-up? Yes.
quick follow-up. So this strikes that language and replaces it with the proposed change. Okay, if I could just speak in support of Representative Dahl's amendment, I thought that was a really important change that we made back to accommodate voters and I just don't know why we are restricting access to the polls. I find it undemocratic of us. I hope you'll support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee members? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment offered by Representative Dahl, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. The motion fails and the amendment is not adopted. Okay, Representative Harrison, I believe that you have an amendment to move forward. Representative Ball, I apologize. Representative Ball, you're recognized to send forward your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, bill sponsor, Representative Davis. Given that these previous amendments have not succeeded, I would propose that we appropriate some funds to educate the people of North Carolina in this significant change and how they can send in absentee ballots. In a previous situation, we spent about $1.4 million statewide to educate the voters about the election law changes. And with all due respect, putting something on a website is not sufficient for people to get notified. And we need, it can't be just handled at the county level, which if we don't appropriate statewide funds, the burden will fall on the county boards of election. So we need consistent statewide education of our voters to make them aware of this significant change. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ball. Questions or comments from members? Representative Davis, question, comment?
Thank you, Representative Ball. Thank you for bringing that amendment forward, but I would respectfully request that the committee vote no on the amendment. I think measures will be in place to adequately inform voters of the changes being made, and we don't need to spend $2 million to do that. Thank you.
Representative Willis, you're recognized.
Question for the bill sponsor. I believe you said earlier that the all materials, not just the website, but all materials would have the dates and information posted on that as well?
I know that in the second section requires county boards of elections and the state board, both of them, to publish on its website and on any materials sent to voters the date that absentee ballots are available for voting for that election and the date that completed absentee ballot request forms must be received by a county board of elections for that election. That's why I believe we have enough safeguards in place without spending $2 million.
Agreed. Thank you,
Taxpayer
sir.
money. Thank you.
Further questions or comments from members of the committee regarding the amendment? Yes, ma'am.
So it's the expectation that the state board and the local board of education, the state board and the local board of elections be responsible for covering the cost of printing the materials with this new information?
So that's a question to Representative Davis, the bill
Yes.
sponsor.
The answer would be yes, ma'am.
I needed clarity about what I just asked.
And he's going to answer your
Representative
question.
Stevens. Well, I didn't, he may have asked that, but I need clarity. And I have the right to ask that.
You do, and your question?
My question is, who's going to pay for that?
Representative Davis?
Because Representative Ball's, because Representative Ball was asking for money to be given to this, and you referred back to what was in the bill, but it
Yes, ma'am.
doesn't say who's going to cover the cost of that printing.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, could I ask Ms. Churchill to answer that, please?
Yes, staff is recognized to address the question.
Thank you, Representative Mills. Representative Baker, the bill does not appropriate any funds for any purpose at this time. So the requirements for including the information in any mailings would be at the cost of the county boards or the state boards from their existing appropriations.
Thank you.
Further follow-up, Representative Baker? No. Representative Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would appear to me that the boards burden the cost of the election. So the instructions they're currently sending out for current law is a minor change in the directions that are being printed anyhow. In other words, they're already sending out instructions with the absentee ballots. It's simply a changing of the it doesn't require additional information. It's just, so it's already covered in the cost. The cost is already there. This change in the procedure wouldn't necessitate an additional cost for preparing the educational materials or the instructions on the materials that's typically produced anyway. So I, again, don't see a point in the appropriation.
Representative Ball.
Speak on the amendment a second time,
Yes,
please.
you're recognized.
In response to the statements that have been made. Unfortunately, unless you draw people's attention to significant changes that have been in operation for, 13 years, that people have become aware and used to this approach that they can submit their ballot and not worry about it getting there. They have that grace period. And so we need to let them know specifically what this change is and what it would impact their behavior, and also allow them to think about making certain that the ballot is mailed or delivered, and mailed in this chance, in this opportunity, because of the fact that we have a very unreliable and unfortunate mailing system in our state. I think all of us have experienced that with cards and so forth, and notes getting delayed and not received at an appropriate time. So I again ask for your support of this important allocation of resources to help educate all voters in North Carolina of the change. Thank you.
Representative Dahl, you're recognized.
So I don't know who can answer this, but I know that on the absentee ballots, so number one, we have to pay somebody, the county has to pay somebody to lay out the directions on the back of the ballot, and then there's the ballot secured. I can't remember all the parts, and then there's the envelope. So would we not have to Representative Warren's point, yes, we're still sending it out, but we'd have to pay for further layout and for further changes to the absentee ballot to be, so therefore there would be a cost. And we have not, in the budget we've appropriated, we haven't appropriated any extra funds to the State Board of Election or the County Board of Elections to pay for such a change. So, I mean, the printer's got to get paid for their layout services. So it would have to be a change, because I knew that we had to do that when we passed 1169. We had to take into consideration the cost of reprinting directions.
Did you have a specific question?
The question is there not a cost to bear from a printer's point of view or from a county point of view, that you would have to change the layout, and that is a cost, and that's a cost. So changing the layout is a cost that must be borne, so therefore there is a price to pay extra.
Could staff address the question?
I'll take a shot, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you.
Nothing in the bill appropriates money at this point in time. Nothing in the bill requires an additional mailing to any voter at this time. It would say that for any mailings that are going out, the county and the state board would need to include the date by which absentee ballots need to be requested and the date by which they need to be received back once voted. So if there were any mailings that went out that were just kind of in the box, already in place, they would need to be updated to comply with this if passed. How they went about that and what the cost would be, I don't know that we have any way of knowing that. We're happy to try with fiscal and the state board to see if we could get an estimate, but.
Follow-up?
A follow-up would be is that there's a cost to everything. I mean, so I want us to be aware that we're asking, while not appropriating funds for this change, we are asking someone, whether it be the county or the state, to absorb funds to change things, because the printers don't print for free, the ink's not free, nothing. I mean, it's a system built on capitalism. Everything costs money, so therefore we're asking for an unfunded mandate is my point.
Okay, Representative Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you. With all due respect, Representative Dahl, the ballots haven't been prepared yet. I mean, the next election I know of are municipal elections. So these ballots are going to have to be prepared anyway. They're going to have to be changes in them because you got new candidates. So when they do that, they'll simply add on what we're talking about now. I mean, with all due respect, I think that's an extreme stretch to think that when you're going to update what you got to update anyway and just add a couple of lines, there's going to be some astronomical cost. Plus, I think $2 million could be spent on a lot better purposes than this when we got all these safeguards in effect and the fact it's going to be updated anyway. So once again, I ask you to please vote no on the amendment.
Several members have asked to speak on the amendment. Representative Harrison, I had you next. Do you wish to speak on the amendment?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Briefly, and I think it's a question. I don't know if it's for Chair Davis or staff, but the dates that the state board has to include in these materials, is it the same dates that the bill changes? Because I understand that there is some question.
We'll recognize staff. Could you rephrase your question?
It's been brought to my attention that the dates that the state board has to include in the materials aren't the same dates that the bill changes.
Staff wish to be. Ms. Churchill, you recognize?
Yes, sir. Representative Harrison, what the bill is requiring is publishing the date by which absentee ballots are available for voting and the date by which a completed request form must be received by the County Board of Elections. Section 1 of the bill is changing the time period, the date by which the voted ballot in a traditional mail-in ballot form needs to be received back. So yes, those are 3 separate dates.
Follow-up, Representative Harrison? No follow-up. Representative Stevens, did you wish to be recognized on the amendment?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I was going to what Representative Davis said.
Very good. Further questions or comments regarding the amendment? Yes, Representative Dixon, you're
Thank you.
recognized.
Very quickly, for several times since I've been in the General Assembly, I've heard the Postal Service derided. There's millions, billions of pieces of mail that's very timely, and I just don't think it's fair to casually throw the postal system under the bus. I think they do a very good job.
Thank you, Representative Dixon. Questions or comments regarding the amendment from members? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed to the amendment, please say no. No. Ayes appear to have it, or excuse me, the noes appear to have it. The noes do have it, and the amendment fails.
Man, I thought we had it.
Okay, members, that brings us back to the PCS, to the bill. Was there any further questions or comments from the bill sponsor?
None other than I hope you will vote in favor of the PCS. Thank you.
Representative Harrison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to speak to the bill if possible. And to Representative Dixon's point, I'm actually a former employee of the U.S. Postal Service. I spent summer there, enjoyed my years there. But I will say that we've had some constraints on the adequate funding for the Postal Service, so the delivery has not been as reliable, particularly during COVID. And I appreciate this body's strong support for House Bill 1169 to accommodate voters who had concerns while we were suffering from the COVID pandemic. And I felt like we had made some improvements on individuals' access, voters' access to the ballot. I'm looking at some numbers that we are looking at nearly, and I think these numbers have been stated, that we're looking at nearly 15,000 ballots being thrown away, and it seems to be at least half or, I mean, it doesn't even matter. It crosses all party lines. It's not like one party dominates over another. So we're all going to be throwing away our constituents' ballots by this if we pass this bill. I don't understand the concerns. I heard Representative Willis say that we want to know on election night, but we're not going to know on election night. So I can't really figure out the purpose of the bill beyond suppressing the vote. And 15,000 ballots in 2020, 12,311 in 2022 would have been thrown out. And I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Harrison. I had Representative Warren next.
Just for motion at appropriate time.
Okay, Representative Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Representative Harrison's point, I think if the people, when they're properly informed of the deadlines, I think that they will do the corresponding thing and get their ballots in on time. So I don't think you can say that those ballots would have been thrown out because the date was not what it is now. When they're informed, they will respond. They'll get the ballots in on time.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Representative Ball, you're recognized.
To speak on the bill,
Yes.
In regards to several things that have been said, it is critical that our voters, no matter the party, be aware of any significant changes. In the opinion of many people, this is a quite significant change as far as absentee ballots are concerned and the grace period that we have been allowing people. So I encourage everyone to vote this bill down in its current form. In the regards to, we are disenfranchising, however you want to call it, thousands of voters who have become accustomed, and frankly, without additional mailings, public service announcements, whatever might be the way our state board would notify all voters of this change, I think our voters will not all be aware of the change, and therefore will send their ballot in, assuming that it's going to be counted. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ball. Representative Dahl, you're recognized.
And just to echo my colleague Representative Ball's point, to that point, last biennium, a bipartisan bill was introduced that discussed about education and educating the voter. Voters are not clued into voting like we are. I mean, we work 2 years towards our next election and keep on going. And to us, this is normal, everyday business. But a voter who is just out there in the world doing what they do for a living, this is not first and foremost on their mind. And so in the current form, I don't think this bill is a great idea for the people of North Carolina. I think that we are expecting a lot of information to be absorbed and a huge change. So I hope you will vote no.
Representative Baker, you're recognized.
To speak to the bill.
Yes, you're recognized.
I would like to know, what are we specifically using as the measure for which we introduced this bill? Representative Willis said that given our current climate in the nation and what we're dealing with in terms of elections, what specifically for our state triggered this? Because as far as I know, we didn't have any allegations of fraud or anyone who spoke up that our elections were not secure and that the process was not followed. So I am wondering what triggered this particular bill for our state based on information from our state, not what the current climate is.
Is that a question for the bill sponsor?
It is.
Would you like to be recognized to address the question?
Thank you for the question. In a nutshell, the reason that I and my co-sponsors put this bill forward is to streamline the process, to make sure that when the ballot is cast, it goes straight to the Board of Elections. Nothing can happen in between. By not having a ballot box sitting there where it could be tampered with or whatever, that's eliminated. The whole thing is to make the process more concise, more trustworthy, more transparent, and more straightforward. And that's the rationale behind it. Thank you.
Members, it's 10:48. It is time to vote. We're going to cut off debate there. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of people sign up from the public. We do not have time to hear from you. I apologize for that, but the hour is drawing near, so we're going to move to a vote. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is there not a small couple of minutes that some of the people who signed up could speak?
I wish there
know
were, but we've got over 12 people signed up. If we allow 30 seconds, we're going to be past the time. So we're going to have to move to a vote at this point.
May I request a division, please?
You want the ayes and noes? Is that what you're saying? We haven't had a vote to have a division yet. So.
Ayes and noes is good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, let's have a roll call vote. Members, please vote yes or no on the bill when your name is called.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I believe Representative Warren's motion was favorable to the PCS, unfavorable to the original bill.
Yes. Yes, I apologize. So, Representative Warren, would you like to restate your motion?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to make a motion for a favorable report for the PCS for House Bill 304, unfavorable to the original, with a referral to rules.
Very good. Members, you've heard the motion. All those in favor will indicate aye. Those opposed will indicate no. The clerk will call the roll.
Amber Baker.
No.
Kristen Baker.
Aye.
Ball.
No.
Biggs.
Aye.
Blackwell. Aye. Guanci.
No.
Cotton. Absent. Davis.
Yes.
Dixon.
Aye.
Bearclaw. Harrison.
No.
Eiler. Absent. John.
No.
John, no. Riddell.
Aye.
Riddell, aye. Ward.
Aye.
Ward, aye. Willingham. Willingham, no. Willis. Aye. Willis, aye. Zinger. Aye. Zinger, aye. Dahl.
No.
Dahl, no. Warren.
Aye.
Warren, aye. Bell, absent.
He's not.
So Bell is here, sorry. Bell, aye. Hall, absent. Jones. Absent. Stevens. Aye. Stevens, aye. Mills.
Aye. Okay, members. The bill passes with 14 ayes, 7 noes. Any further business? The bill receives a favorable report. Okay, hearing no further business, we stand adjourned.